Queen Elizabeth's sister, Princess Margaret, found forbidden love and paid the price. What is the price of a crown? For Queen Elizabeth's younger sister, Princess Margaret, it was the love of her life. This is the tragic story of a vibrant princess who was forced to make an impossible choice between her heart and her royal duty, a choice that would haunt her forever. In the rigid, gilded world of the British monarchy, some rules are written in law and others are practically written in stone. For a princess whose life was defined by her proximity to the throne, falling for the wrong person wasn't just a personal mistake, it was a crisis that could shake the very foundations of the crown. This is the story of that love, the devastating choice it forced, and the steep, lifelong price that was paid. Princess Margaret was the royal family's dazzling star. Where her older sister Elizabeth was dutiful, quiet, and preparing for a destiny she never asked for, Margaret was vivacious, witty, and impossibly glamorous. She was the royal rebel, the spare to the heir, a socialite who captivated everyone with her charm. And then there was Group Captain Peter Townsend. He was everything post-war Britain admired, a decorated Royal Air Force pilot, a hero of the Battle of Britain, a man of quiet courage. He joined the royal household as an equerry to her father King George VI and became a steady, constant presence in their lives. He was older, more experienced, and had a seriousness that seemed to perfectly balance Margaret's sparkling energy. Their connection truly deepened in 1947 during a royal tour of South Africa. Margaret was still a teenager, but the seeds of something profound were planted. She later said that it was on that tour, riding horses together every morning, that she really fell in love with him. It was a fairy tale beginning, but one that was already shadowed by a huge catch. Peter Townsend was a married man. The affection between the princess and the equerry simmered for years, finally boiling over after the sudden death of King George VI in 1952. As her sister ascended the throne, Margaret was lost in grief. Townsend, now working for her mother, became her shoulder to cry on, her closest confidant. Their shared sorrow forged an unbreakable bond. By this time, Townsend's own marriage had fallen apart, and he divorced his wife in late 1952. The following year, he proposed to the 22-year-old princess. Margaret, head over heels in love, said yes. They thought their love could conquer anything. They were wrong. For months, their romance was a secret kept within palace walls. But on June 2, 1953, the day of the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II, the world was let in on it. As the royals stood before the cameras, a sharp-eyed journalist noticed a tiny, intimate gesture. Princess Margaret, completely naturally, reached out and brushed a piece of lint from the lapel of Townsend's uniform. It was a fleeting, simple act, but in the hyper-observed world of royalty, it was a thunderclap. The story was out. The scandal had begun. The affair threw the palace into a crisis. It brought back bad memories of the 1936 abdication, when King Edward VIII gave up the throne for Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee. The establishment, the government, the church, and the courtiers was determined to not let that happen again. The hurdles facing Margaret and Peter were enormous. First, Townsend was a divorced man. The Church of England, which Margaret's sister was now the head of, had a strict rule. It would not perform a marriage for a divorced person whose ex-spouse was still alive. While the church legally recognized divorce, a church wedding was completely off the table. Then there was the law. The Royal Marriages Act of 1772 stated that any royal under 25 needed the monarch's permission to marry. Without it, the marriage was legally void. This put the new young Queen Elizabeth in an impossible spot. How could she, as the head of the church, approve a marriage the church itself forbade? But how could she, as a sister, deny Margaret her happiness? Queen Elizabeth was caught between her crown and her sister. By all accounts, she was incredibly sympathetic to Margaret. She wasn't the villain here. She was a sovereign bound by her sacred oath and immense pressure from her advisors, including Prime Minister Winston Churchill. They warned that Parliament would never approve the match, which would spark a constitutional crisis and damage the monarchy. So they came up with a plan to buy some time. The Queen asked her sister to wait. As a stalling tactic, Townsend was given a job as an air attaché at the British Embassy in Brussels, a kind of dignified exile. The hope was that a 2-year separation would cool things off and the problem would just disappear. The official compromise was that Margaret would wait until she turned 25. At that age, under the Royal Marriages Act, she wouldn't need the Queen's permission anymore. She would just have to notify the Privy Council. It seemed like a light at the end of the tunnel. But this solution came with a devastating catch. After 2 long years, Peter Townsend returned to London in October 1955. The press went into a frenzy. The public, who were largely on their side, waited for a royal wedding. Margaret was now 25 and theoretically free to choose. But the establishment had closed ranks. The government, now led by Prime Minister Anthony Eden, made the catch brutally clear. If Margaret chose to marry Townsend, she could, but she would have to give up everything. She would be stripped of her title, her royal duties, her income, and her place in the line of succession. She would no longer be Her Royal Highness. She had to choose between the man she loved and the only life she had ever known. The pressure was immense. She was a deeply religious woman being told her love went against her faith. She was a loyal sister being told her happiness could threaten her sister's reign. She was a princess being told she had to become a commoner to follow her heart. The fairy tale had become a nightmare. On October 31st, 1955, the waiting was over. Princess Margaret announced her decision. In a statement broadcast to the nation by the BBC, her voice carried the immense weight of her choice. She said, "I would like it to be known that I have decided not to marry Group Captain Peter Townsend. I have been aware that, subject to my renouncing my rights of succession, it might have been possible for me to contract a civil marriage. But mindful of the Church's teaching that Christian marriage is indissoluble and conscious of my duty to the Commonwealth, I have resolved to put these considerations before any others." And just like that, it was over. She chose duty. She chose the crown. In her statement, she made a point to add that she had been strengthened by the unfailing support and devotion of Group Captain Townsend, a final poignant tribute to the man she was giving up. In his own autobiography, Townsend wrote, "She could have married me only if she had been prepared to give up everything. I simply hadn't the weight, I knew it, to counterbalance all she would have lost." The romance that had captivated the world ended not with a wedding, but with a formal, heartbreaking surrender. Choosing duty didn't bring Margaret peace. Many believe the heartbreak of losing Townsend cast a long shadow over the rest of her life, a turning point from which she never quite recovered. She eventually married the photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones in 1960, and they had 2 children. But their marriage was famously turbulent and ended in a very public divorce in 1978, making her one of the first senior royals in modern history to do so. Her life was a whirlwind of glamour and parties, but it was often punctuated by a deep sense of loneliness and unfulfillment. The sacrifice she made for the crown also changed her relationship with her sister. While their deep sisterly bond remained, it was now strained by the memory of this impossible choice. Margaret had paid the price for the stability of the monarchy, and that debt created an invisible yet undeniable distance between them. The story of Margaret and Peter is one of history's great what-ifs. If you were moved by their story of impossible love, please give this video a like and share it with someone who appreciates a story of romance and sacrifice. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories from royal history. The story of Princess Margaret and Peter Townsend remains one of the most poignant episodes in modern royal history. It's the ultimate clash between personal happiness and public duty. Margaret, the dazzling princess, was forced to sacrifice her own great love for the institution she was born to serve. Peter Townsend eventually remarried a Belgian woman who many noted looked strikingly like the princess he lost. Margaret and Peter saw each other again in a reunion in 1993, just 2 years before his death. Their full story, however, may still be waiting to be told, locked away in their letters in the royal archives, sealed for years to come. Princess Margaret's life was a complicated mix of incredible privilege and profound pain, but she will always be remembered as the princess who found a forbidden love and who, when forced to choose, paid the ultimate price.